From 2017 to 2022, the Vatican flag on Wikipedia Commons contained a mistake. You can now tell which flag manufacturers or emoji platforms used the file. How did such a huge mistake like this go unnoticed for so long? So in 2015, the Vatican City flag on the Wikipedia Commons page was correct. Then in 2017, a user mistakenly interpreted this part as supposed to being red, which that is not the case. Apparently on the coat of arms alone, it is red, so it's an understandable mistake, but it's not supposed to be on the flag itself, which just seems kind of confusing overall. Like, I can understand. So this is how it's supposed to look, defined by the nation itself. Meanwhile, there are all these examples of how far this mistake really went in real life, in really important moments. I mean, I can't even imagine, was it ever flown outside of the Vatican itself? Maybe it's possible. It wasn't even just a problem in the wild. There were actual emojis that were using it wrong on Facebook, on Twitter, on Joy Pixels. I gotta admit, I do kind of like this red on the Joy Pixels emoji though. Wait, so Apple never made the mistake? I guess not. How did they get that lucky? If you didn't know, most flags have a flag code in which they describe the colors used, the dimensions. But unfortunately, I guess it took 5 years for people to read all the details here. It's nice to see that it's back to normal on the official Wikipedia page again. I like how it specifically says now in the very first line, white band. According to the poster, someone tried to correct the mistake from an anonymous IP with a well-researched explanation, but nobody read it, so the mistake lived for 5 years. People literally said, I ain't reading all that. Too long, didn't read. I know it's like a simple mistake, and, you know, kind of like, who cares? It's just a flag. I still find this pretty hilarious, though. I mean, it's kind of like if we had the US flag, but someone just mistakenly left a star off. Like, yeah, who cares? It's just a star. You still have 49 other stars, but that would end up being a pretty big deal once you go into the deeper meaning behind the stars in the states. Which state got left off? Which state is no longer part of the US? All these designs are valid under US state code, which does not specify which shade of red or blue to use. Remember what I said about flag codes just a minute ago? Well, some were more specific than others, and apparently that Vatican City code is very specific. For the US, not so much, because nothing in the US state flag code specifies which colors to use exactly. All these are technically correct. I think this is the version that pops up on Wikipedia. This is probably the version that looks a little bit more natural to our eyes. Like, I always saturate these a bit when I see them on the internet. Okay, this is just way too much, although for my thumbnails, I like to make them nice and bright. For some reason, this just looks like an older US flag that just like faded away in the corner. I mean, technically speaking, they're right. This is still blue and this is still red. Finally, we have the grayscale US state flag. We should really like all band together and start flying our own version of the US state flag, whatever colors you want to use until they update the code. I wonder if this is why when you Google USA flag, you do get a wide variation of colors right here. Some more saturated, some more faded, which, mind you, being specific about the colors is a really big deal. We saw this from France only like a year or two ago when they updated their flag. It went from more of this blue to just like a straight up navy, which I like. And then don't forget about this classic meme about Japan's redesign in 1999. It all makes a massive, massive difference. Well, it's not a big deal. I feel like we should probably fix this. Another example of how the tone of color is super important. Red, white, and blue flags given the Luxembourg colors. The small nation of Luxembourg inside of Europe has to be extremely specific about their colors, as well as it's pretty unique because if they're not, it will be extremely easy to confuse it with the Netherlands, who basically have the exact same design. So here is what the British Union Jack would look like with the Luxembourg colors. Here's what the USA flag would look like with Luxembourg colors, which technically falls below our flag code and description and stuff. Here's Russia, which kind of trips me out a little bit. There's Norway, as well as even New Zealand. This post really shows just how unique the colors Luxembourg chose to use were. Like, I don't know if anyone else really uses these tones and hues. It's like a whole massive terminology. I'm not a color scientist. I need to be using certain words, but I don't really know my colors. Oh, I wanted to say this Russian flag looked a little bit familiar because they did have something similar to that in the past. Immediately following the fall of the Soviet Union, the post-Soviet Russian flag did look like this, but for 2 years. It's kind of crazy. Somebody posted about the proper technique of folding the US flag. Here's the proper way of folding and carrying the Indian flag. I'm actually not super surprised that every country would have a specific folding method, just depending on the ceremonies each nation is doing. So step one is to put the Indian flag horizontal, then fold the green and orange band underneath the white, fold the white band in a way where basically only the icon is showing, and then finally carry the folded flag on palms or arms to store it. This actually looks pretty cool. And this also seems like an obvious way to fold any flag with like an icon in the center. How exactly are you supposed to fold the US flag though? Especially because we have some weird dimensions. It's like 16 by 10. Hold the flag waist high with a partner. The flag should be parallel with the ground. background. Okay, that kind of seems obvious. Bring the upper and lower halves of the flag together, folding it lengthwise in half. Fold the flag lengthwise again, bringing the lower half up to the top. This is getting a little confusing for my brain. I kind of can see what's going on here. Ah, and then you start to make little triangles, and you go all the way down to the triangle point inward. Oh, so that's how it's supposed to be. I feel like I have seen that before. That is a pretty neat way. I wonder who came up with that. Oh, maybe it was the British that came up with that, because they have a very, very similar method as well. Is it only like colonies of the British that fold flags? Staying in a port city in Tokyo, Japan, and a few ships bear this flag. It's too centered to be Norway, so what is it? Yeah, that's definitely not the Nordic Cross, and I don't know. I mean, I guess a Norwegian ship could be in Japan. I also know this isn't a typical Japanese flag. They have specific state flags as well. It's not called state flags in Japan, though. These are actually called administrative divisions, which sounds really fancy. But no, Japan has literally some of the greatest subdivision flags I've ever seen. Like, they all have a common theme to them. Like, it's amazing. It actually bothers me that we are so not like this here in the US. I mean, to be fair, I guess Europe has a very rich flag history, so it's kind of hard to tell certain regions to like stick to a certain theme. Can't really do that. Anyways, it's safe to say that weird Norwegian flag is definitely not a Japanese subdivision. It's probably not the Tokyo flag either. I don't even know what the Tokyo flag looks like. Well, it's literally this. It kind of looks like something out of Star Wars. So that means that this just has to be some sort of company or something? Yeah, it's actually a Japanese shipping company. And even the Japanese shipping companies kind of stick to somewhat of a theme, kind of. They definitely don't look too bad. And here's the one that we saw right here. These are some thick crosses right here. This one's very similar too. Okay, so apparently it is kind of common for shipping companies to have their own house flags or company flags, especially if they're doing like shipping stuff, American President lines. Oh wow, some are even doing some fun dimensions. Didn't even know this was a thing. So this was posted by someone, and it was found in the nation of Turkey. As you can see, we have Portuguese written on a sticker with the Portugal flag, and what is that back behind there? Who could it be? Who would Turkey just randomly disrespect like this? Would it be Greece by any chance? No, there's no way. Their rivalry can't be that bad, right? I like how they didn't even try to do a good job. Like, they just slapped it on there and the sticker's now coming apart, or maybe someone like peeled it back so we could see. No, this can't be Greece. This is just like a weird Scotland flag. Yeah, well, let's just give some credit where it's due. At least they didn't put the Brazilian flag for Portuguese. Mistake happens all too often. Here are some real-life flag proposals for South Africa over 100 years ago. Now, this is obviously what the South African flag looks like today, but back when it was still a colony under the British Empire, it was something like this. And I guess here are some possible changes they wanted to go with instead. Of course, this first one throwing the Union Jack in the upper left-hand corner, actually a lot of these proposals still have the Union Jack. Remember, if these proposals were made in the 1910s or 1920s, they would still be under the British Empire. South Africa wasn't independent until 1961. So I know that I'm usually pretty hard on flags that include the Union Jack in them, but in this case, it actually makes sense. I understand you kind of need to have the Union Jack. Let's not forget the old Canadian flag used to have the Union Jack in the corner as well before they just went with a giant leaf. Now, this proposal does not have the Union Jack. It is giving me very Brazil vibes though. This is the most interesting design I've seen. I don't even know what to say. I kind of like it, kind of. I don't know. It's a weird pattern. Actually, maybe this is even crazier. I'm kind of surprised that no one's gone with a design like this ever. We have kind of like a US thing going on, kind of like Chile as well. Or maybe it's more similar to a Texas flag. They just include more stripes and more stars. There's this checkered monstrosity, please. Thank you. That has to be the ugliest. If they adopted this, that'd be like the ugliest in the world, I think. Or maybe it's this. I don't know. Wow, they decided to just cut off all the other kingdoms. No Northern Ireland, no Wales, no Scotland, just England. This is a similar design, although this does kind of look like the Netherlands. Why the Netherlands? Oh, you know what? That would make sense. I was about to make a dumb joke that would have came back in my face. The old Netherlands flag representation would make sense for this area. And then finally, if you can't choose one, why not just slap 4 on there? I actually don't despise this as much as I would have thought. Looking up the flag of South Africa, you can see how crazy they are about exact definitions for colors and dimensions and stripes. This is how deep it goes. Wow, so South Africa initially was sporting something extremely similar to what Canada had, and South Africa kept this style flag until 1994, and then if you go further enough back, you'll see why the Dutch are represented. Don't you think this Albuquerque flag is a bit strange? What could they possibly mean by this, comrade? Is it still like this to this day? Oh wow, I guess it is. Multiple pushes have been made to redesign the flag, even getting some city council members suggesting an open contest and public vote. What's weird about it is it was adopted in 1968. I don't know why, but for some reason I thought that it had 1706 on it, so, you know, maybe they just had it for a while. But no, these geniuses decided to adopt it during the height of the Cold War. This totally does not look at all like a hammer and sickle. How did New Mexico even allow this? I mean, now it's not a big deal anymore, but I'm just saying, in 1968, Spanish Gothic script acknowledging Albuquerque's contributions to the nuclear and space age. I don't know, something just seems weird about this. Here's how to correctly fold the Swedish flag, which I'm wondering if a lot of Nordic countries do something similar, or if not the exact same. Why do I feel like I'm about to read some IKEA instructions? Lay the flag flat, of course, horizontally maybe. Fold hot dog style. Fold again hot dog style. Fold again hot dog style. Oh, wait, what are you even doing? Okay, well, eventually you're supposed to get to this, and then fold it, yeah, just lay it back down, and then, but how do you know how much, are you only supposed to do 2 folds? 1, 2, sorry, and then 3. Huh, this just doesn't look the same. Definitely doesn't hit as cool as the India one folded up with the square. Why not try to fold it so like you have the center right here, and then you see a little bit of the blue corners? That would be cool. Wait, I have the $1,000,000 question. How do you fold the Nepal flag? Apparently it is doable here according to this YouTube video. Wait, how did you get it? How? This is really in depth. Oh, that looks actually really good when it's all folded up like that. This seems like an impossible challenge. Breaking! Utah has officially adopted a new state flag! Finally, one by one, we are slowly fixing our mistakes, because we certainly have a lot of US state flag mistakes. Here's the old and still kind of current one. It hasn't been officially adopted. It will be next year. So this is where the beehive comes from. For me, I really don't mind, as long as it's not just the old navy blue background, which pretty much plagues like 50% of all of our US state flags. Again, this isn't officially adopted until 2024, and the old or current flag is still going to be around as well. The foundation, they still kept with that navy blue background to represent lakes and open skies, and the beehive actually represents industry. It took me a minute, but I did start recognizing the mountains. And then finally, the Red Rock Valley. Once again, the 4 corner states showing their supremacy. 3 out of 4 of these places literally had some of the best flags in the entire nation, and they finally updated this one up here, which means all of them are great. I still think New Mexico's my favorite though. And big thanks to my patrons. Help, this is the real Drew. I was kidnapped and that's the imposter.
Drew's Argentinian
The slow,
grandpa.
depressing Portugal
Schengen,
Brighton
follow
Is,
amateur
Carmel
Is
Saida,
JohnDenver,
KirinoIsBestGirl,
Phresh Animations,
TheGreatRalphy,
the Polish-Lithuanian
Drew.
Commonwealth,
His ransom is 5
ZaneyBoi,
filet of fish,
and
and
why
he's
am I
at
doing this?
308 Negro Arroyo Lane.